Hey, welcome everybody. It's Wednesday. I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to be in 2 Kings like we have been. And this time we're going to be doing, I think, a pretty fun story. It's a story of Naaman, who is not from Israel, actually from another king, another place, I think Syria. And he has leprosy. So he's coming to a man of God, Elisha, to see if he can heal him, because he's heard that he's done pretty amazing things. So I want to read this story now. I'm probably not going to put it up on print because it's pretty long. But the story is such a cool story that I wanted you to hear it. So it's chapter 5 of 2 Kings. The king of Aram had a great admiration for Naaman, the commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. At this time, our Armenian raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. One day the girl said to her, "Mistress, I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy." So Naaman told the king what the young girl from Israel had said. "Go and visit the prophet," the king of Aram told him. "I will send a letter of introduction for you to take to the king of Israel." So Naaman started out carrying as gifts 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold. This is a lot of stuff. 150 pounds of gold? That's a lot. And 10 sets of clothing. The letter to the king of Israel said, "With this letter I present my servant Naaman, and I want you to heal him of his leprosy." When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, "Am I God, that I can give life and take it away? Why is this man asking me to do this?" Let me look at, we're good. Why is this man asking me to do this? I can see what he's trying to pick a fight with me. See, he's kind of thinking that if he can't heal him, then the king will go, "Oh, yeah, you couldn't heal my servant," so then he comes in and wipes him out. But Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay, and he sent this message to him: "Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet here in Israel." So Naaman went with his horses and chariots, big powerful guy, horses and chariots. Those were the F-16 fighters of their day. So Naaman went with his horses and his chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with this message. So now Elisha didn't actually meet him. He just gives him this message. And he says, "Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored and you'll be healed of your leprosy." But Naaman became angry and stalked away. "I thought he would certainly come out to meet me. I'm such an important big guy, you know." He said, "I expected him to wave his hands over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Abana, and the Pharpar better than any of the rivers in Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed?" So Naaman turned and went away in a rage. I'll just tell you that the Jordan River, not exactly a clear running river. It's muddy and kind of ugly. It's not a pretty river. So, he looks at, am I going to wash in that dirty, muddy river? Couldn't I do this at home? I mean, we have really much better rivers where I'm from. But his officers tried to reason with him and said, now listen how the officers tend to have, more common sense than he does. His officers tried to reason with him and said, "Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, 'Go wash and be cured.' So Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed. And his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. Then Naaman and his entire party went back to find the man of God. They stood before him, and Naaman said, "Now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant." So what happens next is also kind of interesting, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. What happens next is he offers him gifts, and Elisha says, "I don't want your gifts. That's not why I did this. I did this because of God of Israel. So take your gifts and go." So he takes his gifts and go. I mean, a lot of gifts. If Elijah was all concerned about being rich, he could have been rich here, but he isn't. But one of his servants thinks, "Wow, now look at all that money we could have." So he runs after Naaman and says, "Hey, Elisha's changed his mind, and he wants the gifts after all," which was a lie. And this guy ends up not being in very good shape after Elisha finds out that what he has done. Now, this story of Naaman is not just in the Old Testament, because Jesus, when he goes to his hometown, and he gets up and he reads out of the Torah, and he says, "Today this has been fulfilled in your hearing," and they're all real impressed, that this hometown boy is doing so well. And then Jesus, because they're just impressed with the glory of it all, they're not really impressed with Jesus or having faith in him, says, "Well, surely you're going to say a prophet's not accepted in his own hometown. And I tell you," Jesus says, "there were lots of people with leprosy during Elisha's day, but only Naaman was healed." And then he raises another Old Testament story in which a non-Jewish person was healed by God. And he's basically telling the people in his own town, Jews, that, God's not going to be here for you. And later he'll say, "It was better for Sodom and Gomorrah than for you." And he tells them that you're no big deal, that God comes to lots of people, including Naaman back in the Old Testament. And so don't be so impressed with yourselves, because for Jesus, the issue is believing. It is not anything that would impress us. It's not gold. It's not, just like Elisha wasn't impressed with the gold that Naaman brought or any of the other things he brought, clothing and all that other stuff. Not impressed with that. He is concerned about God and what God can do. And that's the most important thing to him in his heart. Now, the people in Jesus' hometown of Nazareth were concerned about flashy things and not about God and not about their hearts. So Jesus sort of attacks them and says, you're no big deal, and I'm not impressed with you guys at all. There's another time when a person with leprosy tells a man, not leprosy, but a man born blind to complete his healing by washing in a pool. And that's the pool of Siloam, which is in the lower south part of Jerusalem. And it's still there today. It's not quite as pretty as it was back then, but it's pretty cool. And it still has water in it. And that pool used to be a place where people would go for healing. And Jesus sends this person there as well, this blind man, to the pool of Siloam. So this washing is real important, and it reminds us of something, doesn't it? Jesus was washed in the Jordan himself. We are washed in our baptisms. And it is in that water of our baptism that we are made clean, that we are washed clean. Just like leprosy, skin disease, we have another disease, and it's called sin, and it's deep down in our hearts. And we need the waters of baptism to refresh us, to bring us out of our sin, to bring us into Jesus Christ and into his love and his grace. That's our way in, just like it was for Naaman, just like it was for the blind man in the pool of Siloam, just like it was for Jesus, although he didn't sin before he went into the pool. That's the way God brings us. He washes us. It's the way he brings us into his presence. It's the way he showers his blessings on us is through our baptism. This is a pretty cool story. That he heard from this servant girl from Israel. Hey, there's a guy in Israel, Elijah, who can heal you. Well, there's a God in heaven, and there's a man named Jesus Christ who also heals us, heals our sin, but heals us in other ways too, as he cleanses our hearts by the inspiration of his Holy Spirit. Have a great day, and God bless. And I hope you are truly blessed today by the love of Jesus Christ, and not by material possessions or anything else. Take care.